In today's automotive industry, whenever we hear someone say that they've taken their best car ever and made it even better than before, it usually means one of two things. Either A, they've taken an already existing vehicle and given it a complete makeover, or they've created an all-new vehicle from the ground up. However, not every manufacturer follows those same philosophies. Take, for example, Mazda, already having a great driver-focused series of vehicles that's steadily been getting better over the years and that covers all different areas of the automotive industry. But this week on The Driveway, we're driving their biggest offering, and we're gonna see just how much better it's actually gotten by going for a spin and showing you all around the 2021 Mazda CX-9 Signature. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome aboard the 2021 Mazda CX-9 Signature. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm suffering a little bit of deja vu here because this now marks the third time that I've ever reviewed or driven this generation of the CX-9. Now, even though it is digital, I do still have the Maroni sticker for this particular automobile. And pricing-wise, I want you to take a quick guess what you think this is going to cost. 45, 47, 50, yeah, you're around in the ballpark if you said 50 or less, because the starting MSRP on this exact example here is $46,605. We have a $395 charge for the pearl white paintwork, plus no charge for a pre-delivery inspection, and the typical $1,100 for delivery processing and handling, and it all equals up to a total price on this example of $48,100 even. And for all that you get here, which pretty much all of it is standard, it is quite a lot of value for money. The question is, does the driving experience really equal not only the zoom factor that Mazda's been known for years, but does it really also equal the price tag? Well, let's hit the start button, get on the road, let's find out. So I wanted to start off our drive today by talking about something referred to as Jinba Itai. And I do apologize if my Japanese is absolutely terrible. I don't speak it, have never practiced it. And those of you who do speak Japanese will more than likely understand what I'm on about. But if you don't, what Jinba Itai essentially means in Mazda's terms is that the car should have the same relationship to its driver as a horse does to its rider. In essence, as they say, the car should feel like an extension of one's personality. Well, I could definitely see where they got the extension part from for the CX-9, because this thing is 20 inches longer than its closest sibling, the CX-5. So this is definitely the big boy in Mazda's family. That being said, it doesn't really drive like a big bumbling crossover. It doesn't feel like it's going to wallow from side to side as you're driving down the road. And you really feel that in two places. Number one, you definitely feel it in the handling. For starters, the Signature, as you may know from other Mazda reviews that I've done, comes standard with Mazda's i-Activ all-wheel drive. And you really do feel that in places like the steering, for example. It's a little more heavy, it's a little more weighted. It doesn't feel like it's just that one finger on the steering wheel kind of motion like you might find in, say, a front-wheel drive car. The other thing you notice is that the track of this car is a little bit narrower than most other vehicles in this segment. If you look at other competitors from like Kia, Hyundai, Toyota, Nissan, brands like that, you'll notice that they definitely have a wider space that they occupy on the road. This, not so much. It's a little more like sort of a grown-up wagon versus a full-blown 3-row crossover. That being said, I still feel like I have a plentiful amount of space in here, although those of you looking to sit a little bit lower in the driver's seat, especially if you're over 6'1" like me, you may want to look elsewhere, because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't feel like the seat goes down far enough to where I can actually get into a somewhat comfortable driving position. Now, even though for 2021, Mazda has made a few changes to this car, both cosmetically and also in terms of its technology, there is one area of this vehicle that has not changed since its first introduction for this design back in 2016, and that is its powertrain. At the front, we still have the same 2.5-liter turbocharged and direct-injected Skyactiv 4-cylinder with direct injection and the dynamic pressure turbocharger, and as always, it makes 227 horsepower and 310 foot-pounds of torque. Now, you would think that for a car of this size, that would still be at least adequate enough power to get you where you need to go. But there is a little trick that Mazda has installed in this car, which is what type of fuel you use. If you run it on regular gasoline, you'll be getting the figures that I just mentioned. However, if you stick premium gasoline in this car's fuel tank, you'll be getting 250 horsepower and 320 foot-pounds of torque. Now, this is all routed through Mazda's Skyactiv 6-speed automatic transmission, which I might admit is a little behind the times, considering most cars nowadays are going 8, 9, 10 speed, you know, infinite numbers of gears in their transmissions, and Mazda still has only 6 to deal with. And also coupled with the fact that, again, this particular example is all-wheel drive, and you'll be looking at a pretty decent mile per gallon rating of 20 in the city and 26 on the highway, which is nothing close to class leading for 3-row crossovers. There is one other thing you will notice about the performance of the CX-9 is that while you're driving it normally, it feels just like any other normal 3-row crossover. However, if you decide that you want to experience a little bit more of a zoom factor in your family crossover slash SUV, you can reach down here, put this thing in sport mode, knock it over into manual, and take control using the paddle shifters here on the steering wheel. But unfortunately, I think most of you will be a bit underwhelmed, because obviously not only do we have a lot of bulk to shift with the bigger body that the CX-9 carries, but the engine just seems to upshift way too early. It shifts at about 5,500 to 5,800 RPMs, and the red line on this thing is nudging around 6,500 RPMs, give or take. Now, that is a good thing, though, because it means you don't have to rev the balls off this thing just to get any power out of it, and the torque is much lower down. But I think it's just so weird that if you do decide to drive your 3-row crossover a little more spiritedly, that the revs just don't seem to climb as fast or stay up as long as most other competitors in the same segment. So now let's face facts. This car costs nearly $50,000 as it sits. And yes, for that kind of money, there are a whole host of different 3-row, 6, 7, maybe even 8-passenger SUVs and crossovers on the market to choose from. So, does the CX-9 feel like it's got the best of the breed? Well, I'm not going to draw that conclusion just yet, but as far as performance goes, yes, the engine doesn't produce the most amount of horsepower in the class, although the torque is very surprising. Is it the most spacious one on the market? Not really. It's still a little bit narrow in terms of where I'm sitting. It doesn't feel like it has the most airy interior in it, but at the same time, there are still 2 other areas that we need to look at before we can truly draw a conclusion on this car, and that's the inside and the out. So let's head back to our favorite little spot and go talk about that, shall we? Now, it may seem hard to believe, but this generation of CX-9 has now been with us for 5 model years. And unless you're a little bit OCD like me, really not a whole lot has changed in the overall design and sort of philosophy that Mazda has instilled in their largest crossover. Now, I talked about that the exterior has received a few little minute changes, and the first one is the grille. We now have a titanium finish to this large open grille here in the front, forcing all the air into that turbocharged Skyactiv 4-cylinder. We now have the new grille slots here going across the middle. Of course, the enlarged Mazda badge with the encasing across the front. Of
course, that houses all the sensors for things like the radar cruise control and the forward collision warning. We also have a forward-facing camera down there, standard on the Signature, with the 360-degree around view monitor. As you can see by the sensors lining the front, we also have the front and rear park assist, and of course, straddling that large grille are full LED headlights. No incandescents can be found here, just the LED daytime running lights that run around the high and low beams. And these LED running lights actually have a lighting signature that goes around the inner part, at least along the lower edge of the grille, which adds a very nice signature to the front end. And of course, these are also auto leveling and adjusting, and also come equipped with auto high beam assist. Mazda still has a very elegant design language in their philosophy, so you have things like the lines running around the wheel arches, down along the rocker panel, and across up to the rear. You also have the body line that runs pretty much from the front fender all the way up under the windows, and that also includes where the mirrors are located as well. So it's a very simplistic, but still yet a very elegant design at the same time. In continuation with the changes for 2021, we now have a full set of 20-inch vapor silver finished aluminum alloy wheels wrapped in 255 50 series Falcon all-season tires. And to be honest with you, I wasn't quite sure what to make of them at first. They almost looked a little two-dimensional, a little too monochromatic for my status. But at the same time, they're a very simple wheel. The design is still very classic. Of course, we have four-wheel disc brakes underneath and four-wheel independent suspension all the way around. In continuation with the simplistic yet elegant body design, there's not really much in the way of advanced features when you go down the side of this car. The first thing you notice is we have body color and black power folding side view mirrors. As you can see with the car locked right now, they're folded in. They each have a camera located underneath with the side part of the 360 camera. You also have the LED turn signal hidden in the middle of those, but there also is a lot of polished silver down the side, and I really like these kind of touches, not just the silver window trim, but also these beautiful slightly matte finished but very polished looking silver roof rails up here. We also have a standard size power tilting and sliding sunroof, no panoramic sunroof on this one. And of course, that leads us into the Mazda advanced keyless access system. First of all, still love the key to this thing. It's much more flat, much more compact design. Again, it seems they've taken a page out of say Volvo or Kia's book, not just with a more compact, more nicer designed key, but also with the functions now on the side. So you have lock, unlock, the power tailgate, and panic. You also have a full metal key blade that can be released from the back of the key fob and can be used to unlock the vehicle via the keyhole on the driver's door. Now, just by simply having the key on your person, you can use the buttons on the door. You push it once. When you unlock it, as you can see, the mirrors fold out. If I want to lock it back, just hit it again. Now, in a quick comparison to the smaller CX-5, I mentioned before when I reviewed that vehicle that it had a serious rump on it, but this one is a little bit more rounded and it does stick out quite a bit further. But that's not to say it's not a very elegant design for its rear end. First of all, you notice up top you have a small little lip spoiler that comes off the back with your third brake light integrated. You also have the shark fin antenna up top for the XM satellite radio. But as you come down the back, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. First of all, you have almost full LED tail lights. Your turn signals are still incandescent, but you have LED reversing lights and LED main bulbs. As you can see, you have the newer badging, so the Skyactiv badging on the right, all the way across to the new CX-9 badge in the lower left-hand corner. Of course, you do have the backup camera hidden here just underneath the Mazda badge. And down below, we not only have a much larger dual exhaust, as you can see the larger tips down below, but as you can also see, we do have the rear half of that parking assist that I was talking about earlier. Now, of course, one of the biggest advantages of any three-row crossover, regardless of size, is cargo space. So let's go ahead and open the standard power tailgate that we have on the Signature trim. And the first thing we're greeted with is actually the backs of the third row seats. And at first glance, it really doesn't look like there's a whole lot of room back here. In my eyes, it's probably big enough for at least maybe a couple of backpacks, maybe a decent sized roller bag to go along with it. But unless you know about the little cargo space hidden here underneath the rear floor, you're looking at just 14.4 cubic feet of cargo space behind the third row. However, if you use those little levers right there, pull them down and flip the third row seats forward, that suddenly extends your cargo capacity to 38.2 cubic feet of cargo space. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no, you fold down that second row of captain's chairs right there, and you're looking at 71.2 cubic feet of cargo space. So still plenty spacious. However, like I said, and like most of the other things on the CX-9, definitely not the biggest in the class. Now, of course, any Mazda product that has the signature nameplate always comes with one real party piece, which is the handcrafted interior. Now, as you guys have seen in my past Mazda reviews, any car that bears the signature trim name, I've always given high praise to the level of craftsmanship that they have instilled in the interior. And here for the CX-9, it is no different. Now, there are a couple of updates that are major ones for 2021, one of which we'll get to here in a bit. But the first thing you need to know is that you now have quilted patterns here for the bolsters of not only the front seats but also the second row as well. I'm loving the white piping here on these deep chestnut colored seats, and although it actually looks black on camera, the interior of this car is a very deep dark chocolate brown, and it really contrasts nicely, especially with the white exterior that we have on the test car here. But other than that, it is exactly what you would expect from the signature trim. You have everything from the hand stitching going around the interior of the familiar designed leather wrapped steering wheel. We also have Santos Rosewood trim going around places like the window controls right here, where you have your power locks, window locks, all 4 automatic windows, your power mirrors, and the folding mechanism. But you also have other things like the sort of faux aluminum trim here, plenty of leather everywhere, especially across like the door handles here, and also across the armrests in the middle part of the door, and also other cool functions like the heated and ventilated functions for both of the front occupants. Both the front seats are power adjustable, including the lumbar support and the 2-person memory for the driver's seat. And then as you come just to the left of the steering column, lastly, you have a few little familiar buttons. You have the button to turn on or off the park assist. You have the hill assist. You also have the lane keep assist or lane departure warning, the button to activate the 360-degree camera while the vehicle is stationary. And lastly, the most important one is opening the power tailgate. Once you're sitting inside the CX-9's cabin, you really notice that it really has not changed all that much from when this generation first debuted back in 2016. But like I said, everything in here is somewhat familiar. From the design of the steering wheel, as I mentioned before, again, fully leather wrapped with the heated steering wheel function, which is located down here in the lower center stack. And of course, it is festooned with all the buttons you would expect. On the right, all of this is for the advanced radar cruise control. On the left, you have your seat track with the info button right in the middle, which changes all the relevant information in the thin film transistor display that makes up your average miles per gallon, your digital fuel gauge, even though you got an analog one down there in the lower right, and of course the speedometer in the middle, which is where all the relevant information shows up. You also have the volume function, including mute, hands-free Bluetooth, and voice recognition as well. Now, because this is a turbocharged car, Mazda has instilled a set of paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, which I really haven't used even once the entire time I've had this car. But like I said, if you want to drive a little bit more spiritedly, those are there just in case. Now, in addition to the interior cosmetic updates that I was mentioning earlier, the other big thing you need to know about the CX-9 is now the infotainment system has changed with a new 10.25-inch high-definition display, now complete with Mazda's newest Connect infotainment. And this contains everything you want. I mean, from general information all the way down to the entertainment with Bluetooth connectivity. You can also use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in this now, so you can run things like Spotify or Pandora. Of course, Bluetooth communication, as I said earlier, and it also includes the rather generic Mazda navigation system. Now, quite frankly, I'm still not a fan of these more basic navigation systems. I mean, not everybody wants to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay with something like Google Maps or Waze, but I prefer that a little bit more because it's a little bit more simplistic to use, and it's also tied to your phone versus this, which will need to be updated as the car gets older and also as the navigation system goes through its major updates. You go through everything else. I mean, you got basic settings. I mean, really just all the simplistic stuff you could want. You really don't need to go too in-depth with the system to really get to where you need to go. But if you're looking to control that, you can go all the way down here to the center, and you have the infamous click wheel with a few little buttons surrounding it. So you have the little star button, which allows you to favorite different functions within the system. You have the button for navigation, the home screen, which we just saw, your entertainment, and also the back function. And also the click wheel can be used to say zoom in and out on the navigation, and also you push this down to select anything within the system itself. While we're on the subject of buttons, we also have the volume and radio power button as well, and this is connected to what I said is quite frankly one of the greatest stereo systems that I've heard. I've always loved the Bose audio systems that Mazda has put in their cars, and like I said, 12 speakers here for the CX-9. So let's push the button and see what we get. In addition to all the wonderful features and functions within the infotainment system itself, you also get some of the things that you would typically expect in a higher end vehicle. Like I said, the first thing you notice is a much more clear backup camera here. We also do have power door locks, which automatically lock the vehicle once you start moving, say over about 10 miles an hour or so. As you can see, the backup camera is split screen here. So not only do we have the full screen backup camera, which you can actually adjust if you so desire, but you can also see over here in the corner, we have the full 360-degree around view monitor, as I was talking about earlier. Now, also one thing we look forward to here in the great state of Texas is a car with a good climate control system, and this one is definitely nice. I mean, a lot of AC systems all do the same thing, but I like the way that this one is laid out, with the exception of, as you can see, if I had to reach around the front of the shifter here, especially if the car was in park, I would have to reach around the shifter to get to some of the functions in here, but everything is pretty straightforward. As I said, you've got the heated steering wheel function up here completely by itself, alongside all the controls you would expect for climate control. Your heated and ventilated seats, 3-stage for both the front occupants, as I said before. Temperature knobs on either side. You've got buttons in the middle. You can do the automatic AC on the left or synchronize the temperatures over here on the right. So that basically means you can either operate the temperatures independent of each other, or with the twist of the driver's side knob, you can operate them both at the same time. Other functions, I mean, the power button, rear AC, air conditioning, recycling, front and rear defrost, turning on the AC itself, your fan speed, and your climate modes, all clearly labeled and much larger, easier to read buttons. You come down a little bit lower, the Signature does give you a standard wireless charger. This is an option on most cars, but the higher end one at almost 50 grand, I would expect no less with a standard charger down there. And then we get to the gear selector. Now, I actually like the position of this because, as you can see, it is in very close proximity to the wheel. Now, I could understand if this was a manual transmission vehicle, that would be a lot more fun, but quite frankly, it's just a standard 6-speed automatic, as I said before. It has all the functions you want, including the manual mode. You just knock it to the left when you're in drive. You push up to go down a gear, pull back to go up a gear. Of course, you have the sport mode trigger right down here, just to the left of that. But quite frankly, I would just forsake the stick if you're going to be driving it a little bit more spiritedly and just take control on the paddles instead. We also have a couple of other little niceties down here, including your electronic parking brake. You just pull it up to set it. That is indicated by the little light on top. Put your foot on the brake, push it forward. That is what releases it. And we also have the auto brake hold down here. Now, the cool part about this is that you can leave the car in drive with the system active, and it will hold the brakes for you. It does exactly what it says. This prevents your leg from getting some sort of fatigue, especially if you're stuck in traffic and your foot's stuck on the brake pedal for a while. That's definitely going to save you in such cases. You also have 2 standard size cup holders back here. As you can see, my body armor drink is sitting in there pretty comfortably. Same with my, what used to be a bottle of Pepsi, but is now a bottle of water, both of which are sitting in there comfortably. But if you have something larger like a Gatorade bottle, that's more than likely not going to fit in here unless it's one of the smaller ones. However, a large Coke from McDonald's will also fit in there just fine as well. And also, you have a split center console here. First of all, leather bound, nice and padded, great place to rest your arm. And as you can see down inside, not only do I have space for things like my keys, but I also have 2 USB ports in here. And finally, that little door right there is what covers up the SD card for the navigation. And for those of you who are curious what's going on up here on the headliner, we have an auto-dimming rear view mirror with a completely frameless design. I absolutely love the design of this mirror. I'm kind of tired of the big, thick plastic borders that they put on a lot of cars these days. You do have the button to turn off the auto-dimming function, and you also have a 3-setting HomeLink garage door system, as you can see right here on the lower left. Apart from that, you have a sunglasses holder up top, all of your LED map and reading lights. You could turn them all on with the push of a button if you want. You can also turn them off when you have the doors open. But apart from that, the only other trigger you need to worry about is the single one here that operates the sunroof. Now, in addition to all the niceties you get as a driver or passenger, your rear occupants are treated to just as much of that executive feeling. Now, before we get into the back seats, the first thing you notice, we have the manually retractable sunshades back here. You can just lift them up, fold them down in the door if you don't want them. However, I actually like these because they act as sort of an extra little bit of window tinting, despite this car already has the factory tint on it. So it just makes a little bit more of a nicer experience back here without being blinded by the crazy Texas sun that we have these days. But as you also notice, we have the quilted pattern, as I said, just the same as the front seats here for the second row. You'll also notice, first off, that the Signature only comes as a 6-seater, so you get the captain's chairs as the second row. Unfortunately, if you want the 7-seat configuration, you're going to have to go with one of the lower trims. But as I get into the back here, first of all, you don't really have to duck your head all that much. The seats are pretty high up, but they're not exactly what I would call the tightest seats in the world. But you also notice that with the seat in its current position, and keep in mind, I'm over 6 feet or right around 6 feet, depending on which doctor I go to, I only have a little bit of leg room between my knees and the back of the seat. So if you have a shorter driver, you're going to have a little bit more room back here. Nevertheless, we do have 4 map pockets back here. You have 2 in the back of the driver's seat, 2 in the back of the passenger seat. And as I said, because of the fixed center console, you don't have to fold anything down. You have your separate heating controls for the second row seats. The third row seats does not get any sort of luxury, but also you have the split level center console right here as well. So again, kind of a representation of what's up in the front. And last but not least, the rear occupants, or at least the second row, gets their own climate controls as well. So you have power on, climate zones, automatic functions, temperature controls, and fan speeds as well, all combined with a very similar display from what you get up in the front, but just in a little bit of a smaller version. Now, as you would imagine, unless you are a small child, or at least someone of a small stature, your preference is going to be sitting up here in the second row as a passenger in this car. But if perhaps you feel like you want to sit in the third row, you can just lift up the latch right here. As you can see, the seat automatically slides forward and tilts forward, and it allows you access into the third row seats, which is kind of the most plain area of the CX-9. As you can see, no quilted pattern like the first or second rows. You do have 2 USB chargers, one for each of the occupants here in the third row, as well as at least maybe space for at least 2 of your drinks, maybe one a little bit bigger if perhaps you so desire to be that way. But I've already tried to sit in the back seat right there, and basically my knees ended up in my chest. So unless I want to be folded like a human pretzel, I'm just going to stick myself either in the driver's seat or in the second row. In conclusion, the 2021 CX-9 Signature is a fantastic medium-sized 3-row crossover that delivers potent turbocharged performance, a spirited driving experience, but all while accompanied by all the lavishes of luxury you could possibly want, and a fantastic, more executive-themed 6-seater layout. But that wraps it up for this review today. So if you guys liked something, or perhaps you learned something today, please feel free to give this video a thumbs up. And also, while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it will benefit the both of us in the end. At the end of the day, all the credit goes back to Mazda USA for allowing us access to another one of their fantastic vehicles to drive around for a whole week. But at the end of the day, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.